Today we're going to study a fascinating daf, page 31 in Tractate Shabbat, dealing a lot with Agadeta, learning from our sages, a lot of moral stories, a lot of explanations of the values that the rabbis cherish, and then times allow we go to the next Mishnah. Last line on page 30. Tanu Rabbanan Olam Yadam Anvetan Kehillel Vali Kabdan Shammai. The famous story of Hillel and Shammai, it's stories that go throughout the Talmud. One of them is the statement that the person should be patient and humble like Hillel, and not be, in a sense, a kabdan, can be rigid or strict like Shammai. Rabbi Salanter used to say that people misconstrue the concept of Shammai. Shammai by profession was a appraisal, and according to some sources in the Talmud, Shammai was he held the amata binyan. He used to have a measurement of a building, which means he was an appraisal by name. Shammai is appraisal, and there are places in the Talmud that Shammai is more lenient than Hillel. So we are not speaking here about sense of halacha. We speaking about patience and humbleness. Not that Shammai is wrong or bad, but in a sense that the person should go an extra mile. We're going to study several stories that show tremendous amount of patience with people who are difficult, with situations that people does things in order to agitate a person, aggravate him, and how Hillel, especially in his position as the leader of the community, went an extra mile. מעשה בשני בני אדם, page 31a. שהימרו זה את זה. אמרו כל מי שילך ויקנית את הלל, ייטול 400 זוז. So it was two people that took a bet, and they said whoever be successful to aggravate Hillel will get 400 zuz. 400 zuz. How you get the value of 400 zuz? So the Gemara tells us in Кто-то and in Gittin that when it's come to divorce agreement, or even to writing a marriage agreement like Tuba, so the basic is, if you look at the Кто-то, it's 200 zuz. 200 zuz meaning that the rabbis felt if a person knew that he needs to pay 200 zuz, he will think twice or several times if it's worth to go to that expense. Meaning that 200 zuz, it's a large amount of money. It's a very valuable large amount of money. Here you have two fellows that took a bet over how much? 400 zuz, who will be able to aggravate Hillel. So first of all, this betting, it's not something that we are for. But go to show you that how far can people go, and it's also show you the trait of Hillel, because when we use the statement a person should always be patient like Hillel, so this attempt, it's involved with several things. Number one, he said, Amar echad mehem ani aknitenu. One of them said, I'll go and I aggravate him. So, number one, אותו היום ערב שבת היה והלל חפף את ראשו. It was Friday, and Hillel went to take a shower. Now, those days, Friday afternoon, it's not like you open the shower faucet and you have water. You have to take a special tub with you, and you take all the shampoo and its involvement. And the choice of the day and the time, Erev Shabbat, Friday afternoon is a very busy time in general, and the person chose at that time to disturb Hillel. When? The time that he's washing his hair. So this is the head of the Jewish community. It's Friday afternoon, and when he gets to wash his hair, הלך ועבר על פתח ביתו. Right? אמר מי כאן הלל? מי כאן הלל? So the person went to the Hillel's entrance of his home, and he shouted, who is Hillel? Who is Hillel? So number one, you're not talking just an average person. You're talking to the head of Jewish community using this first name. So Hillel was forced to interrupt his shampoo in order to respond. And not just that, it's a story about Moshe Feinstein, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, was the head of American Jewry for many years. And one time he walked on the street and someone screamed, Moshe, Moshe. And he turned around and he said, can I help you? You know, the guy most probably meant somebody else. But the point is that calling Hillel by his first name is very inappropriate. Going to his house on Friday afternoon, it's inappropriate. Seeing that he is going to, he's taking shower and disturbing him, it's very inappropriate. נתעטף ויצא לקראתו. So Hillel went out and stopped the shower, and so the secondly is that his contemptuous manner, which is address Hillel, like he didn't know what is Hillel. But the question now, he said, אמר לו, בני מה אתה מבקש? My son, what are you looking for? What do you need? אמר לו, שאלה יש לי לשאול, I have a question to ask. What's the question? אמר לו, מפני מה, אמר לו שאל בני שאל, מפני ראשיהם של בבליים גלגליות. He said, why the head of Babylonia is oval, which means it's a round head. So he is now starting with a series of ridiculous questions, and the Maharsha emphasized that this inflammatory implications was particularly irritating, right? All this together, it's very disturbing. אמר לו, בני, שאלה גדולה שאלת, מפני שאין להם אחיות פיקחות. So number one, he said, oh, you ask a very important question. So Hillel's approach, the Iyun Yaakov tells us that Hillel's approach to this type of question was deliberately nice. He said, instead that it's embarrassing question, it's a stupid question, he said, you are asking a very important question, and this needs a very good answer. And then he went and he said, it's because they do not have a clever midwife, which means they do not know how to shape the child's head at birth. You know, when they deliver the baby, they are helping them, but they didn't know how to shape the head, so that's the reason why the head turned in a certain way, which is a very interesting answer. But it shows you the Hillel tremendous patience, the Hillel humility, in spite of all of that. So Hillel passed the first test. Second, הלך והמתין שעה אחת. That man went and waited an hour. חזר ואמר the same way, מי כאן הלל? מי כאן הלל? Who here is Hillel? Who here is Hillel? Now, the second time for sure, you don't need to be, too smart to understand that he tried to irritate Hillel. נתעטף ויצא לקראתו. Again, Hillel was probably back in the shower, or right. He wrapped himself with a towel and he went out to greet him. אמר לו, בני, מה אתה מבקש? Hillel said to him, my son, what do you seek? אמר לו, שאלה יש לי לשאול. He said, I have a question. אמר לו, שאל בני, שאל. Ask, my son, ask. I have all the time you need. What is your question? אמר לו, מפני מה עיניהם של תלמודיים טרוטות? Why the eyes of the residents of Tadmor is bleary? So it's like a very interesting question. He asked, the word trutot, there's several opinions as to the origin of the word, its meaning. One possibility is that the derivative, it's from the Greek verb to tear, or the Latin word terer, which means it's a genitive tereris, meaning round. Why the eyes, like you go to those Asian countries, you see the eyes, it's made, it's round or a different way, the eyes. So he said, אמר לו בני, שאלה גדולה שאלת. My son, you ask a significant question. You know why? מפני שדרין בין החולות. Because God is full of compassion. And these people will live among the saints, and the saints get to their eyes. So Hashem made the eyes in such a way so it's protective, so the sand will not get into their eyes. הלך והמתין שעה אחת. Then third attempt. He went another hour, and now it's really close to Shabbat, right? Hillel needs to go to daven. חזר ואמר, מי כאן הלל, מי כאן הלל? The same story, where is Hillel, where is Hillel? נתעטב ויצא לקראתו. Hillel went out, and he came and agreed him. אמר לו, בני מה אתה מבקש? He said, my son, what do you seek? אמר לו, שאלה יש לי לשאול. He says, I have an important question. This is already the third time. נודניק, right? אמר לו, שאל בני, שאל. Keep asking, my son. Ask. He asked, מפני מה רגליהם של אפריקיים רחבות? Why do Africans have wide feet? So it's so the question is apparently the inhabitants of a southern Nile Valley, the swampy region, where is the southern of Sudan, and he asked why they have this leg. אמר לו, בני, שאלה גדולה שאלת. You ask a very important question. מפני שדרין בין ביצעי המים. The reason because they live in Marshall's land, and their feet widened to enable them to walk through those swampy areas. That's the reason. נו, אמר לו, שאלות הרבה יש לי לשאול. ומתיירא אני שמא תכעוס. The truth of the matter, I have many more questions to ask you, but I'm afraid that you will be angry at me that I am asking too many questions and it makes you angry. So Hillel said to him, נתעטב וישב לפניו ואמר לו, כל שאלות שיש לך לשאול שאל. So he said, here, come, sit down, whatever you want to ask, this is your opportunity. אמר לו, they don't even mention the name of that fellow. That fellow said, אתה הוא שקוראים אותך נשיא ישראל? Again, the Marsha said, he is again have an attempt to anger him. He says, are you that they call you the president, the head of the Jewish community? אמר לו, הם. He says, yeah, that's what people call me. אמר לו, אם אתה הוא לא ירבו כמותך בישראל. If this is you, I wish that no one will be like you. In other words, it's a very insulting, derogatory statement, condescending statement. אמר לו, בני מפני מה? He says, my son, why you saying such a thing? אמר לו, מפני שאיבדתי על ידך 400 זוז. He says, because of you, I lost 400 zuz. I lost a lot of money because of you. So it's not enough that he insulted him so many times. Now we even put the blame on him that he lost his bet. Right? אמר לו, הלל said to him, הווה זהיר ברוחך. You should learn the lesson in your spirit, that you should not bet over these type of things, especially something that you're not so familiar. You know, when you're betting on something, at least you should know what you're betting for. But just to put your money on the, you know, on the roulette, on the table, right? If you don't know how to play poker, right? Larry would tell you, don't play. So he said that if you don't know what you bet, right, don't bet. כדאי הוא הלל שתאבד על ידו 400 זוז ו400 זול והלל הוא יקפיד. It's worth it that you lose 400 zuz and in addition another 400 zuz, and Hillel will not be angry. If you know the character of Hillel and you search in advance, you know in advance that you're going to lose in this bet. Why? Because Hillel character, he will not be emotionally angry, right? He will not be irritated over derogatory statement, insulting. Now the Maharsha said that because he didn't want that bet, right? He needs to pay in addition 400 zuz. So in other words, he ends up by paying 800. That's what the Maharsha said. But the point of the story is that there are 3 different phases that this fellow tried to do. It was Friday night, it was a very insulting statement, and it was a very aggravating questions that you like from Antarctica, that they asking questions that it's not any relevance to anybody's life, to anyone, is just to aggravate him. But it's a lot of things we learn from Hillel. That's the statement the Gemara mentioned, that a person should be a patient and humble like Hillel. Now you see why they said it. Another story show you that the character, they said that you always preach a sermon, but use words only when necessary, which means by your action it's already preaching. תנו רבנן, מעשה בנוכרי אחד שבא לפני שמאי ואמר לו, כמה תורות יש לכם? It's a story about a non-Jew that came before Shammai, and he said, how many Torot you have? אמר לו, 2, תורה שבכתב ותורה שבעל פה. Shammai said, we have a written and oral teaching. אמר לו שבכתב אני מאמינך. You see it to this very day. You have people say that, written Torah, I believe that it's from God. ושבעל פה איני מאמינך. But the oral Torah, that's the rabbis, you know. People said all kind of heretic statements. So he said, גיירני על מנת שתלמדני תורה שבכתב. So he said, I'm willing to convert to Judaism with one condition, that you teach me only the written Torah, nothing to do like they call it now, Old Testament. That's the only thing I want to learn, not the oral teaching. גער בו והוציאו בנזיפה. Rashi explained in Bchorot, page 30, that if someone come before us, before the Bet Din, before the rabbi, and he or she said, I would like to learn the Torah with my conditions. These are my conditions. We shall not take that candidate as a serious a person for conversion process. Judaism is the religion that never pressed the light. Quite the contrary, we discourage. So if someone really shows a sincere intent to be Jewish, yet they put any condition, then it's a reason not to accept. So they said Shammai, he just otzio ben zifa, which means he put him out, he rejected that person. Ba lifnei Hillel, gairei. Hillel came and he processed the conversion. Why? So the rabbi said, because he was not really a person that objected the entire Torah. But because he was ignorant, or even ignoramus, or someone who's not familiar, is just hearsay, saying things, so the minutes he get involved in Torah and Torah life and understanding better, then he grasps the whole. And that's the reason, because Hillel converted him properly, and then he turns that he believed in both. That statement that fellow made wasn't a scholarly statement, it's a statement of someone who's not educated. So, how? So now the Gemara bringing an example how Hillel make that fellow accepting also the oral teaching. Yoma kama amarle. So the first day Hillel taught him, and he taught him what? Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet. He just taught him the alphabetical order. Lemachal. Apechle. So the next day he turned around. So the Rashash tells us that either he taught him from the end to the beginning, or instead of calling Aleph, he called it Taf, which means he switched the order. Amar le va'et molo amart li achi. He says, what's going on? Yesterday you taught me something else. Amar lo lav alai didi kasamach. Are you trusting me as your teacher? So you don't going to trust me with the order of the words, which means you have to trust me. If you trust me yesterday, you have to trust me today too. The alpe names mochalai. So in other words, you have to trust me also that the oral teachings came from the divine, not only the written teaching. So Hillel tried to tell him that by understanding the Torah shebe'al peh, the Torah said, Ele hachukim v'mishpatim v'hatorot, and they use the plural term, applied to oral teaching and the written teaching. So he said that in order to understand properly the written Torah, a person must use the oral teaching, because otherwise even the alphabet they will not be able to do. So to understand, so you have to say that both of them was given in Sinai. The difference is that some was transmitted orally. When God said to Moshe Rabbeinu, build a sukkah, he also gave him the specification, and those specification was handed over orally from one generation to the next. שוב מעשה בנוכרי אחד שבא לפני שמאי ואמר לו. It's another story, incidents involving a non-Jew that came to Shammai, and he said, גיירני על מנת שתלמדני כל התורה כולה כשאני עומד רגל אחת. I want to have a condition. I want to convert to Judaism while I'm standing on one leg. So Maharsha said that the question wasn't to antagonize him. He wants to know if you can abbreviate, if you can take a synopsis of the entire Torah while you're standing on one leg, which means what is the essence, what's the foundation for the entire Torah that you carry. דחפו באמת הבניין שבידו. So there are a few things. You can go by literal meaning that Shammai was an appraisal and amat habinyan was like a measurement and he pushing. But you can go the literal text that amat habinyan is like the foundation of the building. So he wants to say that the same way as a building cannot stand, his structure cannot stand while in one leg, you have to have 4 legs of the building in order the serious foundation, in order to have the building stable. The same way is the foundation for the entire Torah. You cannot put it in one place, one leg. You have to have the serious legs, the serious foundation, in order to understand the Torah. בא לפני הלל גיירי. Now he went before Hillel, and Hillel accepted that fellow and converted him. So again, you see that the different approach. And what did he do? He wants to learn the whole Torah. He said, "De'alach sneh lechavrech lo ta'aved." Whatever you despise, you should not do to your fellow. Which means that's the commandment between man and his fellow. As you know that we have the 10 commandments. There are 5 and 5, and the 5 on the left, it's commandment between man and his fellow. So Rashi explained that the key is the commandment between man and his fellow. They said in Mishlei, in the book of Proverbs, chapter 27, they said, Re'acha ve're'a avicha al ta'azov. Re'acha, it's God, and avicha lo ta'azov, which means chavercha, your fellow, is a double meaning. Either your fellow, it's your fellow man, or the God. So that's the Maharsha said that's based on the idea ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love thy fellow and thyself, which means via negativa, that whatever you do not like people to do to you, don't do it to others. In other words, think always, if somebody else does this to you, how do you react? And therefore, that's the foundation of Torah. Ve'idach perusha uzil gvor. He says the rest, it's elaboration on this central point. So go and learn it. So in other words, if you want to know what's the essence of the entire Torah is, don't do to others what you don't like others to do to you. Always put yourself in the shoes of someone else and think if you like people to do that to you. So the minute you get this grasp point, that's the essence of whole Judaism, which is a huge, tremendous teaching. Third story, שוב מעשה בנוכרי אחד שהיה עובר אחורי בית המדרש ושמע כל סופר שהיה אומר ואלה הבגדים אשר יעשו חושן ואפוד. It was a non-Jew that went past by the house of study, and he heard a children's teacher that he was like in a cheder, like a place that you have all these children's studies. And I must tell you, every time I go to Israel, I made my business the first day and the last day to go to a big cheder. They have like maybe hundreds or couple of hundreds students, and to pray with them and to study Torah with them. For me, it's one of the most enjoyable moments in my life to be there. To hear the voices of so many little children singing and praying in such a pure, innocent expressions, it's very uplifting. So anyway, this teacher in the cheder, this teacher of little children, he was with his student, and he was teaching them the proper bgadim, the proper garments that Aharon HaKohen, the high priest, the Kohen HaGadol, he was wearing them in the tabernacle. So he quoted from the book of Shemot, Exodus chapter 28, that said, these are the garments that they should have, and it's a breastplate, and it's a choshen, the ephod, it's the breastplate and the ephod. So Amar, so halalu lemi. So the non-Jew came in and he asked the teacher, what is it? Amru lo lekohen gadol. That's for the high priest. אמר אותו נוכרי בעצמו, אלך והתגייר בשביל שישימוני כהן גדול. I'm going to convert to Judaism in order for them to make me a high priest. So, בא לפני שמאי. So he went before שמאי. אמר לי, גיירני על מנת שתשימני כהן גדול. So he came before Shammai and he said, converted me in order for me to be high priest. In other words, he is not wanting just to convert, he wants to be appointed as the high priest, and it's a condition, and he wanted because of the glory or the honor or the beauty. דחפו באמת הבניין שבידו. Shammai, viewing the request as ridiculous, right? He pushed the person aside with the ruler he was holding in his hand. That's one. The other interpretation said that the whole idea is that he rejected him because the whole of the foundation of Judaism, it's not only by the identity and the dignity of the high priest. And if this fellow have a condition in order to be Jewish, he needs to have a better foundation in order to be considered a candidate. So basically Shammai wants to imply that his request is impossible. בא לפני הלל וגיירי. So he went before Hillel and Hillel accepted him. אמר לו, so how Hillel was influencing him to give up his condition. He said to him, כלום מעמידים מלך אלא מי שיודע תכסיסי מלכות. He said, go and learn. When they have the ceremonies of royalty, learn what's required for the kehuna, and then you see what's the request. Lech lemod tachsisei malchut. So go and see what's the condition, what they need to do in order to. It's like a fellow came, was several years ago, and he came to the yeshiva. We study over there in Ner Israel, and he said he wants to learn to be a rabbi. How long it takes and what needs to get ordination. So someone took him seriously and he said, here are all what you need to study. Finish all of this, you can pass the test and goodbye. So the fellow was happy. Then that fellow started learning it, and he realized that it takes years and years and years to finish all these studies. It's not just learning those chapters and those books. The list involved in a very details and takes a long. So you need to have a larger foundation. Halach v'kara. So he opened the Torah and he tried to study the halachot involved with the Kohen Gadol. כיוון שהגיע והזר הקרב יומת, when he starts reading that someone who's zar, who's foreign, meaning someone who's not a Kohen, that he is doing work that belong only to the Kohen, that designated solely and only for the Kohen, he will has a death penalty by heaven, right? So he gets frightened. Amarle. So the potential for conversion said to Hillel, Mikra ze al mi ne'emar, to whom the Torah speaks. Amar lo, afilo al adam David melech Yisrael. Even a king of the Jewish people, Melech David, King David, even a fellow like him, since only the Kohanim allow to do the sacrificial offering, and in order for the Kohen to be Kohen, it's someone that inherited by birth, which means he had to be born to a Kohen in order to be a Kohen. He cannot purchase it. So therefore, even King David, the king of Israel, cannot do what the Kohen designated to do. Nasa oto ger kal v'chomer be'atzmo. So that fellow start thinking to himself, and he said, "Umay Israel shenikreu banim lamakom." If the nation of Israel that they are calling the sons of the Almighty, umitoch ahava she'ahavam kara lahem bni bechori Israel. So because God loved them, He called them on the tremendous exile in Egypt, and the 4th chapter of Shemot of Exodus, God called the nation of Israel Bni Bechori Israel, my son, my first son, Israel. And even that God selected them to pull them out of exile in Egypt, to do all the miracle for them, in order for them to accept the Torah Still, ktiv alehem, it's written about them, vehazar akarev yumat, that someone who's not designated Kohen should die if he's doing that. Ger akal, sheba b'maklo u'metarmilo, if somebody like me, like a person who converted to Judaism, who doesn't have anything, just come with a knapsack, with nothing, al achat kama v'chama, that I'm foreign to that in regard to the kahuna. בא לפני שמאי ואמר לו, so he came before Shammai and he said to him, כלום ראוי אני להיות כהן גדול, can I be the high priest? ולא כתיב בתורה, והזר הקרב יומת, the Torah said that someone who's foreign should die, and why you didn't rejected me and explain to me that I cannot, even I convert properly to Judaism, I cannot be a Kohen Gadol since I was born as a Kohen. So he said, בא לפני הלל, אמר לו, ענוותן הלל, ינוח לך ברכות על ראשך שהקרבתני תחת כנפי השכינה. So he said to Hillel, blessing come upon the rest of your head, because through the very gentle and unassuming guidance, you brought me under the wings of the divine presence. So again, it shows you the Hillel attitude. לימים נזדווגו שלושתם. All the three different stories of convert we mentioned earlier, all these three got together. למקום אחד, and each of them told his story. Everyone, when they heard the story of his fellows, אמרו קפדנותו של שמאי ביקשה לטורדנו מן העולם, which means the strictness of Shammai, the strengthness of Shammai sought to banish us from the world of true devotion to God, and ותנותו של הלל קרבנו תחת כנפי השכינה. But the humbleness of Hillel, the patience, the manner of Hillel brought us under the wing of the divine presence. So Khatam Sofer have a long discussion why Shammai behave in a certain way, but the simple lesson we see here is the attitude that Hillel has toward others. Now, since we said earlier that the key, if you remember yesterday in our study, we learned that the key of the book of Kohelet and the key for life is a person should have fear of God. Ki ze kol ha'adam. The purpose of a person in life is fear of Hashem. Amar Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish said, "Mai dichtiv." What's the meaning of the sentence in Isaiah 33? Vehaya emunat itecha, chosen yeshuot chokhmat vadat. Here we speak about the Isaiah prophecy in regard to the how the nation of Israel will be saved from the Assyrian king of Assyria, Sanherib. So Isaiah suggested to people, in order for them to keep life of happiness, they should remember to have the fear of God and increase their study of Torah. That's the treasure in order to keep peace in the land. So emunat ze seder zra'im. We have 6 sdarim in Mishnah. The first one, emunat. So Tosfot said that he bring the Yerushalmi, shema'amin bechai ha'olamim vezorea, that the person trusted God and he basically implemented zorea, meaning putting in the ground, he believed in God, that he put a seed and God will add the water. That's the Maharal also said, in order to make it fruitful. In other words, he planted the seed. One of the things that one of my colleagues and friends used to say, it's a person planted the seed, and there is a farmer that holding the seeds in his hands, And he said, should I plant it or not? Why? Because if I planted a seed, maybe bird will come and eats it before it is. Maybe if I plant the seed, who knows how they're going to grow up? Maybe some people are going to steal something from me. So he never planted a seed, or he never planted properly. But he said, Emunat ze seder zra'im, which means the foundation is that you're planting the seed, and Hashem will help to put the water and plant it so it will be flourishing. Itecha, the second one, is seder moed. Itim, it's a apply to moed. Moed is speaking about the time of itim, like the years, the festivals, the Shabbat that we study. It's all a different time and its meaning. Chosen ze seder nashim. Again, juxtaposition between the pasuk and the sdarim. Seder nashim. Nashim, it's involved in the relationship between husband and wife, and all the halachot in Yerusha. Chosen. Yeshuot ze seder taharot. Yeshuot, it's applied to salvation. So he said that they said the nezikim. Nezikim, meaning the law of the damage and damages. All the fight between man and his fellow, and money issues. So they said the nezikim, bringing a Yeshua, like salvation, redemption, because a person worried how to compensate his fellow, not to cause damage to his fellow. Chokhmat ze seder kodashim. Wisdom is the tractate of kodashim. Vadat ze seder taharot. Da'at, it's the wisdom very deep, like all these darim in taharot that involve with the law of purity. For example, kodashim, it's dealing with the Beit HaMikdash and the offering. Taharot is a purity and impurity, so that's need a great wisdom to understand. Va'afilu achei, and wrapping up all, what's above and beyond is Yirat Hashem hi otzaro. So even a person study all these 6 important foundation tractate of Mishnayot, above and beyond is the fear of God. In order for a person to have the treasure of Torah, and remember, he has to have the fear of God, otherwise he forget it. Now is a very important statement. You heard from rabbis all the times. It's a very, very important, and this statement you should always remember. Amar Rava b'sha'a shemachnisin adam ladin. Now he speaks about afterlife, a person upon death. So we believe that there is a death, and then after life there is a heavenly court. It's like a process. Nowadays you hear it in an endless situation that people claim they have a clinical death and they saw the tunnel, and then it was a form of court process. So he said, when they bring a person before the heavenly court, Omrim lo, the first question they ask him, Nasata venatata be'emuna. Did you have a business transactions with honesty? Meaning there is a lot of opportunity when you are in a business world to do deals or to do things that the customers or the boss or the fellow are not familiar. And you can do a lot of things that that people not even caught you or recognize you or know about it, right? So the first question is be'emunah, did you do it with truth, with honesty? Second question, kavata itim la Torah, which means, in a sense, first the person needs to make a living. In a sense, you can't be a workaholic, or you can't be so much in the business that you put the Torah as a secondary and it's unimportant. Oh, whatever, I have time sometimes. You have to dedicate a time every day, like Daf Yomi, to study every single day Torah. So the next question they ask, do you have a designated daily time to study Torah? So that's the second question. Next question is, עסקת בפרייה ורבייה. Two avenues to understand this. One avenue is, do you have children? But Ben Yoyada hold that it's not solely or necessarily, because not everyone can have his or her own children. It's mean, do you help orphans? Do you help people in needs to get married? Achnasat kala, or helping people in the need. So it's like you involved with fulfilling the mitzvah of being fruitful and multiply. Can be either by your own or helping those people in need to make it happen. Meaning helping the bride and the groom who are in financial stress to make things happen, etc. So it's all involved in creating the next generation. Next. So by the way, that's apply also to the sixth tractate. Nasata venatata be'emuna. You have a business transaction in honesty. That's the word emuna we start in the first seder. Itecha. The pasuk said itecha, the time. Kavata itim la Torah. Did you dedicate time for Torah? Asakta be'priya v'riya. You involve in the procreation of the next generation. It's from the word chosen. Chosen meaning like inheritance, future. Pilpalta bechokma. Did you try to dig in to get the wisdom? Chokhmat. And then vadat, we said in the pasuk vadat, knowing, hevanta davar mitoch davar, which means the Tosfot said in Kiddushin, all these questions that they ask, what does that mean? But do you understand from that deeper understanding? In other words, the understanding the Torah is from one to the other, so you juxtapose and you go deeper. Even a person who responds properly for all these questions in a positive way, yirat Hashem hi otzaro. Did you take the fear of God and make it that's your essence and a treasure? Aim. If it's the answer is yes, so he merited in that judgment. Ilo, if he doesn't make the fear of God the center part, lo, he not merited. In order to understand it, mashal le'adam shamar le'shlucho. It's like a person said to his emissary, to his agent, ha'aleh li kor chitin la'aliyah. So bring for me a core of wheat to the addicts for storage. Halach ve'elalo, the emissary went and gave it to him. Amar lo eravta li bahem kav. Kav is like 1 for 180 of the core. So he said that you put mix for me kav. Halach ve'elalo. So the emissary went and did it for him. Amar lo eravta li bahem kav chumton, which means that it's a special earth, that it's free of all these worms. So do you observe it with the wheat in order to observe it properly? Amar lo lav. He said no. Amar lo mutav im lo eleta. In other words, if you did that, it will be better that you not ever brought it, the wheat at the first place. Why? Because now we need to go over and start from all scratch. So the same thing. If a person studies Torah and he wants to remember what he studied, he needs to have the fear of God, which is called, that says chumton, in order to observe the Torah and not forget. Tana dever Rabbi Yishmael Torah, מערב אדם קו חומטון בקור של תבואה ואינו חושש. Which means he said that the person may mix a cup of chumton into a cup of grain, in order for him to sell it, and he shouldn't worry about being unfair to the buyer. What does that mean? So even though the part of chumton, it's not a real wheat, so it's not considering hona'ah. Why? Because Rashi said that it's good for the buyer. It's observed properly for the buyer. So even what we said now, it's not belong here, it's belong to certain nezikin. So, but the Gemara wants to teach us that when it's come to this type of relationship, like thievery and being dishonest, even that part, observe this core of the wheat. A person always should be very scrupulous, very careful to make sure that he's doing it properly, and it's not considering here a wasting time, but this is the essence of the Torah that apply to his own life in a daily basis. Now the Gemara continue in the importance of fear of God. Amar Rabba bar Avuna, Kol Adam sheyesh bo Torah ve'ein bo יראת שמיים, we just turned the page, דומה לגזבר שמסרו לו מפתחות הפנימיות ומפתחות החיצוניות לא מסרו לו. והלל, so he said that any person who has a Torah in him but does not have the fear of heaven, so he is like a treasurer, a gizbar, to whom they gave key to the inner doors of the treasury, but they did not give keys to outer door. So, with what key he will enter? So, although the Torah in the inner key, without fear of heaven, one cannot gain access to the genuine Torah. So, Rashi explained that if a person doesn't have the protection of the Torah, and he doesn't have the chumton to observe it, so it's meaningless. Machriz Rabbi Yanai will proclaim, Chaval al delet ledarta vetar al ledarta avid. He said, woe unto the one who does not have a courtyard and who makes a fence for the courtyard, which means a person who lacks fear of heaven is nevertheless involved in Torah study. So what he tried to say? He tried to say that he is labor, but he didn't reach the tachlit, the whole purpose of all of that. Even the Amala Torah and the labor of Torah, it's important, but the highest is the Yirat Shamayim, the fear of heaven. So the example of the treasure, they bring the Torah that they have the key for eternal and the external. So it's like they paved the way to see. It's like they said in ethics. If is no wisdom, is no fear. If is no fear, is no wisdom. So the Vilna Gaon explained, and in his interpretation of Proverbs, he said that it's a two different level of fear. One is the fear of punishment. It's like the external keys, and the other one is the awe of amazement, awe of the greatness of God, awe of love. Right, so that's bringing the wisdom of the Torah. So it's different level of being involved. Amar Rav Yehuda elaborated on that, and he said, "Lo bara Kadosh Baruch Hu et haolamo, ela kedei sheyir'u milfanav." Rav Yehuda said, "The Holy One blesses He only creates His world, so the people will fear before Him." Which means the whole purpose of creation is because of man, that he have the ability to have the awe of God, and because he sees God in every single action of the world, he created which called bitul hayesh. The Maharal tells us that bitul hayesh meaning that the person annul his needs for God's, because he understands the greatness of God's by seeing the whole event in the world, and he understands how he is in the sense of nothingness. And in order to come close to Hashem, which is the goal of creation, is to understand that his ability to humble himself before God. And that's the purpose of creation. That's the Maharsha tells us that's the key understanding of creation. שנאמר, והאלוקים עשה שיראו מלפניו. Instead in Ecclesiastic chapter 3, and God has so made it that man should fear before him. Here is an example. Rabbi Simon ורבי אלעזר הבו יתווי. They sit together. חליף ואזיל רבי יעקב ברכה. So Rabbi Yaakov Baracha passed by. אמר לאחד לחברי, one said to the other, ניקו מקמי דגבר דחל חטאין הוא. This person have a great fear of God, so therefore we should stand before him because of his closeness to God, but he's a fear of sin. Amar leidach, the second one said to him, Neiku mikamei dikvar bar Uryano. We should stand before him. Bar Uryan, it's a Talmid Chacham, is someone who's a Torah scholar. Amar lei, so the first fellow said to the second, Amina lach ana dikvar dechel chatainu. Ve'at amart bar Uryanu. I told you that we should stand before him because the man has a fear of sin, and you tell me that the reason we should stand before him it's because he's Bar Uryan, that he is a Torah scholar. So Rashi said here the word klomar, ata mi'ateta b'shivcho, which means in a simple way each of these Torah scholars stood up for different reasons. So he's like, what's the reason you should stand before him? What is more important? He said that you tell me that because he's a Torah scholar, and I'm telling you first that before scholarship is a fear of God, fear of sin. So I already told you the highest reason why you tell me that he's a Torah scholar. In a sense, it's like secondary. So Rashi used the word klomar to tell us, atami adeta b'shivcho, by telling me that he's a Torah scholar, you reduce what I told you earlier. I told you earlier you should stand before him because he has a fear of Hashem. That's the highest reason, more than being Torah scholar. So that's the reason why Rashi used the word klomar, and I elaborate on that in my book. Tistayem. So what we learn from that? The Rabbi Lazar hu de'amar degvar chatainu, dechil chatainu. So the reason that Rabbi Lazar praised Rabbi Yaakov, it's because he was a person of fear of sin, meaning that he valued fear of sin more than the value of Torah. דאמר רבי יוחנן משום רבי אלעזר, אין לקדוש ברוך הוא בעולמו אלא יראת שמיים בלבד. That God has in his world only the fear of heaven. Why? Because the minute the person know that God is there, so you ask yourself, not only in the synagogue, also when you're at your business, also when you are at home, in the dining room, does God like what I'm doing? Does God happy of what I'm doing? So he always he is, like King David said, לעשות רצונך אלוקי חפשתי ותורתך בתוך מאי, which means I want to do what you want me to do, and therefore I annul my wishes to your wishes. So he get closer to Hashem, meaning the Maharal said that he became part of God's treasure. שנאמר, they said in דברים, in Deuteronomy chapter 10, ואתה ישראל, מה השם אלוקיך שואל ממך כי אם ליראה את השם אלוקיך. And now Israel, what did God wants from you? Only to fear the Lord, which means God wants a person that he follow his path, they do Torah and mitzvot and everything, but he said that the path for that, the path for righteousness begin with the point of departure of fear, meaning a awe, recognizing that there is God all the time. Uchtiv, and it said in the book of Iyov, in Job, chapter 28, Vayomer la'adam hen yirat Hashem hi chokhmah. They said that that's in the book of Job. They said Vayomer la'adam, as the Greek language they call one hen, שכן בלשון לבני קוראים לאחת hen. So it means that the fear of God is primarily important. The Gemara concludes, indeed, tistayem, that really that Rabbi Lazar is the one who said so. So meaning that the fear of Hashem, the way that the Greek language they call the word hen, it's like shows some similarity between Greek and the Holy Tongue. It's like the Gemara in Megillah said that Torah that's written in the Greek it's kosher. It's hen. It's like unity. The Khatam Sofer said. So the idea is that the fear of God is a uniqueness in the world that is nothing more important to God than this one, and therefore fear of God supersedes all the other traits. Darash Rav Ula. So since the Gemara just mentioned about Geniza of the book of Ecclesiastic, because there are so many contradictions in the book, so now we bring an example according to Maharsha that there are contradictions in the book. Rav Ula taught, Darash Rav Ula. What's the meaning? Al tirsha aharbe. The book of Ecclesiastic said, do not overmatch wicked. So what does that mean? Harbe udelo lirsha me'at lirsha. What do you mean? You shouldn't be a big wicked, but it should be a little wicked. What does that mean, the sentence? Ela, so bringing an allegory, a mashal. מי שאכל שום וריחון עודף יחזור ויאכל שום אחר ויהיה ריחון עודף. One who clove a garlic and its odor spreads, should he again eat another clove of garlic? So it's the odor will spread further? So Rashi said here, דיבור המתחיל מי שאכל שום וריחון עודף, פירוק ההוא כלומר. Rashi here used the word כלומר. Why? So I elaborate here, I'll just give you the abbreviation in my book ביאורי הכלומר ברש"י על הש"ס, that I brought the Rosh Yosef, I brought the Maharsha, that basically here Rashi is an issue, what exactly the allegory here? What do you meant by saying if someone ate the garlic, so he should not eat another one? What exactly he meant? So there are several ways to look at the Rashi. One way is the Khatam Sofer. He followed the Pirkei Avot, chapter 2, that basically said that if someone did one Aveira, one transgression, he should not feel that, okay, I'm giving up for despair, I have no hope, and therefore he just carry on away and just keep doing it. That's the Yetzer Hara, that's basically the evil inclination to think that way. Another way is if we're somewhat wicked, so don't think that it's legitimate to continue and be very wicked. So that's the idea of eating garlic and eating another garlic, which means Rashi has the issue with the definition here, so he used the word klomar. What exactly the Gemara wants to bring about when they use the example of garlic? Someone ate the garlic, so you shouldn't eat another one. So it means, like, don't feel that because you did something, you should carry on. That wicked people will gradually extricate the wickedness. So that's the point of the Rashi here. דרש רבא בר אבולה, מאי דכתיב כי אין חרצובות למותם ובריא עולם. So they said in book of Psalm, for there are no pain, חרצובות at their death, and the body is sound. So that's what King David said, that he complained about the wicked in this world. So he said, look at them. Even the death is such a peaceful death, and you see people, righteous people that die with such a great agony and suffering and going through a tremendous sadness, while the wicked people looks like they at the very end. It's so use the word אולם, כי אין חרצובות למותם, ובריא אולם. And their body is sound. So the Gemara explained it in a drash. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blesses He, said, לא דיין לרשעים שאינן חרדים ועצבים. It's not enough for the wicked people that they're not anxious. It's like חרדים מיום המיתה, that the anticipation of the day of death. In other words, they don't carry any fear of that. אלא שליבם בריא להם כעולם. So the heart is unyielding for them as the entrance of wall is wide, which means they devote no thinking to that. They don't care. In other words, when you go to a big wall, impressive one, so it's like a feeling of space, spacious. It's a huge one. So the wicked, sometimes you feel they're controlling businesses and controlling other people's life, and they keep doing all kind of things that people know that it's very wrong, and they are the way that they're conducting themselves. But he said, "Ze darkam." V'hainu de'amar Rabba. So that's what the Gemara said. By the way, that's what Rabba said. My dichtiv, what it means when the King David used in the Tehillim in Psalm 49. Ze darkam chesed lamo. What does that mean? Ze darkam, kesed lamo. This is the way of them, that they are foolish, and those who after them speak appropriately. So he said, Yod'im resha'im shedarkam lemita. The wicked know deep and deep in the heart of the heart, they knew that the path lead to eternal death. Which means they knew that they're wrong. They knew that they are doing something wrong. But because they have such a yetzer hara, v'yesh lahem chelev al kislam. Which means even they know in the heart that they're doing wrong, but they have a layer, they have a fat on them that they are so much a slave for their materialistic gashmiyut, materialistic life, that the fat around the neshama, the soul, is so heavy that it's cover those feelings. It's just taking away that feeling. Rashi said it's like chelev al haklayot, which means it's a fat on their kidneys that prevents the realization from entering the heart. So in many places the Gemara said, like in Brachot we study in Samech Aleph, that klayot is like bochen klayot valev, who said in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur that God is know what happened in a person's kidney, meaning in a person's heart, in a person's spleen. So it means chelev is like the life of pleasure that cover the real deep thinking. So therefore, Shema Tomar Shichecha in line, because they are so involved with vanity, maybe they forget. Talmud Lomar V'acharehem Befihem Yirtzu Sela, which means Rashi said that they rewind the tape and they show them. And the verse said, and for those who after them speak appropriately, which means they are aware of the fate and speak of it, but it does not affect them, at least not appear in this transient life. It was once, I'm saying it as a side note, many years ago, we study at one of those courses at the university. So we study El-Ghazali. El-Ghazali is one of the most well-known philosopher of the Sufism, which is the philosophy of Mu'tazila of the Islam. So Rabbeinu Bachya ibn Pekuda mentioned him a lot in his books. So El Ghazali said that the evil inclination, which we call the Yetzer Hara, it's basically, he used the term of like a harlot. What does that mean? They seduce a person to do something, and after they cut them and take the money and take everything, then they laugh at them and said, you know, it's your fault that you made these mistakes. It's not mine. So he said that's the attitude. And I personally, when we study it, I said to one of the teachers that I think that it's based on many Gemarot. But anyway, it's a famous statement of him. So that's the whole idea, that it have the chelev, have this fatness around the soul that cover it. Now we're back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, kechas ala ner, which means if he extinguished, they shall have it, and he spared the lamp, or the Mishnah said, or the oil, or the wick, so the Mishnah said, chayav. Why? It's called melechet mechabe. It's one of the prohibitions to extinguish. And the Mishnah said that Rabbi Yossi exempt poter mikulam, is exempt all the cases, chutz min haptilam b'nei shu oseh pecham, except for the case which is extinguish the flame to spread the wick. So now the Gemara asks, Rabbi Yossi keman svira la, to whom he hold that melacha she'ena tzricha legufa. If you do something and other things happen indirectly, so either you say that he is liable, chayav, like Rabbi Yehuda, or you said he's patur, exempt, like Rabbi Shimon, because his way it's neither way. Rabbi Yehuda svira le, if you follow Rabbi Yehuda that said that he is chayav, that he is liable, because his type of work that you don't not tzricha legufa, you don't need it for its own purpose. Afilu behanach name lechayev. So even in those, like someone who extinguished because he is caring for the oil, so he is obligated because it's part of melacha she'ena tzricha legufa. Because he's not basically metaken, he's just making it, you call it in Hebrew, shelo yavo lidei hefsed, that you should not experience lost, which means he is avoiding for taking away all the oil that left on the fire, for example. So Rabbi Shimon svira lei, that Rabbi Shimon exempt in melacha she'ena tzricha legufa. So if someone extinguished because ptila name liftar, so if someone extinguished the candle in order to make sure that the wick will not extinguish and he can use it for another time, so it's considering melacha she'ena tzricha legufa, some type of work that you don't need it for its own, and therefore so he should exempt it even here. Just as a general statement, kibui meaning extinguishing, it's considering melacha, some type of work that you don't need it for its, that you do it for its own purpose, she'tzricha legufa. But that's basically applied to a brand new wick that you still didn't use it, you didn't lightening it, and he just wants to make it clear, to clear the wick. So in order for the wick to be burned quickly and easily, so what did he do? He lightening it and extinguish it after a short period of time. So he basically prepared this wick by extinguishing it. So he basically did the work letzorech gufa, for its own purpose. So Ula suggested as follows. He said, Le'olam ki Rabbi Yehuda svira le. Ula said that actually Rabbi Yossi all in according to opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, which means that he is obligated over melacha she'ena tzricha legufa, but he exempt if someone did it, if he kechas ala ner, if he did it in the spur of the lamp, that's he exempted. Why? וכסבר רבי יוסי סותר על מנת לבנות במקומו וסותר. He hold that if someone dismantle in order to rebuild in the same place, so it's considering soter. Soter is one of the melachot. Even you may say that kol hamekalkalim pturim, if someone did it just for the sake of destruction, is exempted. And this type of setira, dismantles, it's some type of kilkul, some type of destruction. But anyway, when he did that in order to build, it's considering mekalkel al menat letaken, someone who destroy in order to build. So it's considered by itself some type of work. However, על מנת לבנות שלא במקומו לא הווי סותר. But if he does that, he demolishes in order to build elsewhere, it is not considered performance of the prohibited labor of dismantling. Why? Because it's considering mekalkel שלא על מנת לתקן, that is destroying not in order to and as we said, כל המקלקלים פטורים. But not everyone hold that way. Rashi have a lot to say on that, so just let's continue because we're running out of time. אמר לרבא, מקדי כל מלאכות ילפין עלו ממשכן. What we said originally. We said that all the type of 39 work we learn from the Mishkan, from the tabernacle, and the Torah repeats the prohibition of doing work on Shabbat. Right? They said in Shmot, in Exodus 35. So because these two parshiot attach to each other, that all the type of work that need for tabernacle and its utensils, this type of work that prohibited on Shabbat. So he said, והתם סותר על מנת לבנות שלא במקומו הוא. So he basically dismantles in order to build it not on his build elsewhere. Why? Because when they move, when they are in the desert and they move from their location to a different location, so what do? They put apart, right? The
Mishkan.
The Mishkan put it apart, and in order to put it in a new location. So that's the source of melechet stira, of dismantling in Shabbat. So therefore, you may say that if someone soter al menat livnot, if someone dismantle in order to rebuild it elsewhere, you may say that it's not considered type of work, melacha. Amar le, Ula respond to Rava, Shane atam, here in the Mishkan, in the tabernacle, Keivan diktiv al pi Hashem yachanu, because the Torah said in Bamidbar, in book of Numbers chapter 9, that they go only by the word of Hashem, which means any time the children of Israel stop in the desert, it was according to the will of God. So when they journey, the pillar of a cloud went before them to show them the path, and when they stop, the pillar of a cloud was like a sukkah, like a protection for them. So that's considering as what? Kesoter al menat livnot bimkomo dami. It's like someone who dismantled in order to build it where? The same location. Because it's not considering going elsewhere. Over there in the Mishkan, everything was made by the will of Hashem. So we can see that the whole purpose of putting it apart, that was the will of Hashem, that they should relocate it to a different place and build it in a new one. And that's irrelevant to see that as a separate entities without a relationship to the building of the Mishkan. Rabbi Yochanan hold a very different way. He said, "Le'olam keRabbi Shimon svir alei." We'll always go by the Rabbi Shimon. But really, Rabbi Yossi hold the same as Rabbi Shimon, that he is exempt if it's melacha שאינה צריכה לגופה. And he said, ומה ישנה פתילה? So as far as the question, what's the difference about the week? So that can be answered because it's also מלאכה שאינה צריכה לגופה. כדאמר רב אמונה ואיתמר רב עדה ברבה, הכה בפתילה שצריך להבה עסקינן. Here we hold it's dealing with the week that was must before lightning in order to facilitate its burning. So in that case, even Rabbi Shimon agreed, that he fixed this utensil because he make it better. And that's basically melacha shetzricha legufa. And because he extinguished it in order to avoid the loss. And by burning it, lighting it, and extinguishing it, he is basically metaken et ptila, fixing the ptila. That's what Rashi said. Now, Amarava, Daikaname, Rabba said we can learn also from that. Dektane. We said in the Mishnah, the Mechabe, the one who extinguished it, Shehu Ose Pecham. That the reason that we told the Mishnah the extinguisher is liable because he makes the wick into charcoal intentionally. So he said, Velo ketani mipnei shena'aset pecham. And we're not taught because the pecham, the charcoal, was made on its own. So Shema Minas, the Gemara conclude that the Mishnah is understood in that manner in the Pirush of Rabbi Yochanan. Right? Now we're going to study a Mishnah that over the years, I'm close to 20 years as a pulpit rabbi, I can attest that this Mishnah people ask all the time. So I'm going to share with you two different avenues. One is the traditional avenue, another your humble servant idea that I came up many years ago to understand in my way the Mishnah. Hope to God I'm right, but if I'm wrong, I'll accept it as well. Let's address the short Mishnah. The Mishnah made a statement in regards to lighting Shabbat candle. And the Mishnah said, Al shalosh averot nashim metot bishat ledatam. For 3 sins, for 3 transgressions, women die in the childbirth. Meaning, the woman deliver a baby, she needs an extra God's compassion and in a sense it's a time of a tremendous amount of stress. I experienced it with my Baruch Hashem children, 5 children, and Knana Horror, 6 grandchildren, so I know the feeling. I came from a family of very Baruch Hashem large families from both my wife and I, so I know the feeling. It's a great stress in the state of unknown. So they said here in a simple way that women die, and Rashi said later the Gemara explained what does that mean bishat ledatan. What is exactly the time of their? It's like a great dangerous. Now the Mishnah said al sheinan zehirot ben nida. Number 1, that they're not careful in the law of Nida. As we explained many times that there is a time of the period that the woman has to have a distance from her husband, and she is forbidden in the personal sexual relation with her husband until she passed the period of time, and then count the days, and then she needs to duck in the mikveh. So if they're not scrupulous in that, 1. Number 2, bechala, there is a din, there is halacha we study of afrashat chala, of tightening the chala, which is, the Torah said in the book of Bamidbar, chapter 15, that we are obligated when we make this dough to take it tight and give it to the Kohen, to the priest. So that part, it's a small part, it's called afrashat chala, tightening the chala, the roll. And the Yoredea and Shinkav Bet go at length to explain the halachot of chala. So that's point 2 if they're not careful with that. And the number 3, ubadlakat haner, in the kindling of the Shabbat candle, which means that it's all these 3 mitzvot are extremely connected to women. The nida, the chala, lighting candles, it's all connected to the two women. So the Gemara said, what does that mean? Nida ma'itama. If someone is not observing properly the nida, why they deserve this type of Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, היא ככלה בחדרי ביטנה, לפיכך תתלה בחדרי ביטנה. Which means the same way as she is careless in her, in stomach, right, in her area that she didn't behave properly, therefore, measure for measure, at the time of delivery, she be punished, the complication at the time of delivery. So Teinach, you understand nida, that women are not careful in halachot nida. But how about chala adlakat haner, ma'ika lemema? Why women deserve such a severe punishment for not tightening the chala or not lighting candles? It's like someone from Galilee had said before the great Rav Chizda, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Revi'it Dam Natati Bachem. I place a 1/4 of blood in you in order to sustain your soul, which means that that's the Revi'it, 1/4, that's the minimum blood that persons need. Why? Al iskei dam izharti etchem. I warn you by the law of nida. At the top of 32. Reishit karati etchem. He said that you are holy people. Reishit means selected. I call you why? Al iskei reishit. Reishit use the same word, which is, it speak about chala, that you take the reishit, the beginning, the tithe, of arisotechem tarefrishu tuma. That's the part you need to give as a contribution to Kohen. Neshama shenatati bachem kruya ner. As we've said in the book of Mishlei, ner Hashem nishmat adam, that the soul of a person is like a candle. Al iskei ner ezarti etchem. I warn you over the law of ner Shabbat. Im atem mekayimim otam. If you follow nida, chala, lighting Shabbat candles, mutav, fine. V'im lav areini noten nishmatchem. If not, then I taking back your soul, which means the 1/4, the revi'it that your life depend upon, it will extinguished, right? So all this, the candle, the reshit, the beginning, and that's the reason why women, because the women in that sense, they have the obligation, the responsibility to be careful. The woman is in the house. She is Rashi said that the household need is on her shoulder. She have to light the candle. She have to tie the challah. She have to all the hilchot nida and taharas depend on her. So that's the reason why she have this obligation. Mishna bishat leidatan. So why specifically at the time of the delivery time, great stress? So now as a response, the Gemara bring several examples of response, and that's what we're going to study Mitzvah Shem tomorrow. What type of response you have, why women are extra hypersensitive at the time of delivery. Now, you ask me about my personal opinion and that, and not opinion, my personal interpretation, since so many times people ask me that it's like they ask like the crime, it's not match the punishment not to match the crime, that they deserve death penalty and time of delivery. I came up with this idea, and I keep saying, you can take it or leave it. If you said I do not accept your interpretation, it will be fine. But that's the way I came up many years ago, and some people like it. So here's what I have. It's written in the sacred books that there are certain prayer in a time of distress. And the prayer in a time of distress carry a special weight. We as a traditional Jews believe very much in the power of our prayer. The time that women are in the delivery room, this is the time that they are screaming, them, their husband, the family, everyone screaming and praying to Hashem for extra compassion during the huge change in their, in the body and for them, for the baby, for the family, etc., etc. It's a huge change in their lives. So they need extra prayers. So humbly speaking, I felt that the right approach is this. Prayer carry by its own weight, power. I learned this Mishnah as follows. On three things, the prayer of women at the time of delivery will not respond, which means the prayer is dead. The prayer is not respond. Why? Because they are not careful in this certain obligation, which is nidah, chala, lighting candle. Therefore, in the time that they pray, in a sense, the gate of prayer are closed. God is not going to listen to the prayer. So, for three sins, the prayer of those women that was crying in agony, Hashem did not respond, and it's particularly at the time of the delivery. So basically, I felt that the Mishnah here speaks about the prayer. We believe that every single prayer carry a meaning, and every prayer carry a weight. But in that sense, even they are in a great agony, and even at that time, the prayer should carry extra weight. If they are not scrupulous in the law of nidah, in the law of lighting candles, and if not in law of chala, then their prayers will not be answered.
It's very interesting. They have a note here on the Schottenstein. As a woman in childbirth is in peril and requires special kindness from God to survive this dangerous time. Although on the whole her merit may be sufficient to see her through ordinary situations, it may be insufficient to gain for her the special protection necessary to overcome moments of extreme danger. Childbirth is therefore a time when she is in effect more vulnerable to punishment for wrongdoing, i.e. the withholding of God's special kindness. So
you just said it.
Saying the same thing.
I can tell you that it's a tradition. Again, you can take it or leave it. It's a Hasidic tradition. Hasidim said, my late great-great-grandfather, I'm 8 generations, son after son, to Rabbi Elimelech Weisblum, Noam Elimelech of Lizensk. So they said he wrote a book called Noam Elimelech. I think I mentioned that book in the past. So some people hold that because his book is a very high Kabbalistic writing book, women take it for the delivery room and they put it under the pillow, etc. And they hold that like it's some type of amulet, some type of sgula for easy delivery. That's what they hold. When my daughter studied in the Laniado hospital to be a nurse, she wanted at that time to be a delivery room nurse, so I saw it all over the Noam Elimelech. They use it purposely for the prayer for the delivery room, or holding that at that time. We study today many fascinating halachot. First one is Le'olam Yeheh Adam Anvetan Kehilel. The Rambam in Sefer Hamadai Ilchot Deot, chapter 2, he said, a person should always be patient, be humble like Hillel. To the best of one's ability, one should adopt the trait of patience and humility, distancing himself from arrogance and anger, as the Gemara described Hillel in such a beautiful way, while that fellow tried to anger him so many times. Another fascinating halacha we learn is what's the Mishnah Brura mentioned, the Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 156. They said that when a person finished the life in this world, the first question they asked him in the heavenly court, they said, Nasata venatata be'emuna. Did you conduct business faithfully? From the outset, a person engaging in business should conduct himself honestly and faithfully. There should be no theft or deceit if one business affair. Indeed, that is one of the questions that a person is asked when standing before the heavenly court. Did you conduct your business honestly and faithfully? The next question is, Kavata itim la Torah. Did you designate times to Torah study? For Torah study, every person must designate specific times for Torah study on a regular basis. Ultimately, one should study Torah after prayer. If one does not have the skills to study classic text, he should nevertheless study materials that he does understand. For example, focusing one's attention and assessing his actions to ascertain whether or not he is seen, and then resolving to change his conduct under the proper of the Torah study. To ensure that no day will pass without Torah study, the sages introduced several paragraphs of Torah study at the conclusion of the prayer service following the Amida prayer. That's the Be'er Etev said. This too is one of the questions that a person is asked when standing before the heavenly court. Did you designate times for Torah? And that's exactly what we are doing now. That's our dream, that people, when they are, for example, traveling on a train, on a bus, on a plane, they have a time in the airport and all that things, instead of watching all kind of vanity, they should use that time to study Torah. And I want to take this opportunity to thank David for putting not only the YouTube, but also putting the text of the Gemara, so it facilitates those people who not always carry the Gemara, so they'll be able to fulfill the Kavata itim la Torah, the study Torah every day while they are traveling. Another halacha we learn, it's important halacha usoter al menat livnot. This is Rambam in Sefer Zmanim Ilchot Shabbat, chapter 10. He said, one who dismantles in order to rebuild, meaning one who dismantles or ruins a structure with the intent to repair it or to rebuild it, even if the intent is to rebuild it elsewhere, is liable. If his purpose is dismantling, is destructive, then it's like mekalkel and he is exempt. And the last halacha for today, it's hadlakat haner, lighting of the Shabbat lamp. Again, this is Rambam in Sefer Zmanim Ilchot Shabbat, chapter 5. Although both men and women are commanded to kindle the Shabbat lights, that's one of the 7 rabbinic commandments, the mitzvah has nevertheless become the purview of women, and it is their responsibility because they are generally in charge of the home. Furthermore, it comes as compensation for the fact that the first women, that's a famous midrash, Chava, Eve, extinguished the light of the world, as the Mishna and Gemara said. So it's like in compensation of that. It's a famous note. As a side note, I want to mention the Rashba, just as a conclusion. He said that the women are not punished for the failure to kindle the Shabbat light. Rather, the lack of caution results in the lighting after Shabbat has begun, and they are then punished for violating the Shabbat. That's the way the Rashba look at the Hadlakat Haner in the Mishnah.
Boyachem leshuloim malachai ashuloim malachai elyoin mihi melech malchai ameluchim hakudosh burichi Boyachem leshuloim malachai ashuloim malachai